Hi guys, welcome to the Jason Saunders channel, and in this video today I thought I'd go over kind of a cool discussion video, and the discussion video is all about what is my favorite video game, and that's kind of a good question. That's a hard one. You know, there's so many video games out there and so many systems, new and old. How do you pick one video game? And that's a hard thing to do, especially I like a variety of different video games and genres, and yeah, I like to keep it flowing. I like to keep the variety going. So it's hard sometimes. It's really difficult to pick one. But the more I thought about it, and some of my best friends would probably know what my favorite one is. But yeah, so let's get into this. And one of my viewers on the channel asked me this, and it took me a couple of weeks to kind of figure out what it is, because yeah, I mean, it is a difficult situation here. It's difficult to choose one. It's kind of like if I was in a desert island, which one would it be? Which game would it be? And so I'd have to go with the original Mortal Kombat for the Super Nintendo. Now, I've got the original Mortal Kombat for just about every system. I've got it for the Game Gear, the Game Boy, the Sega Genesis, and the Super Nintendo. And I kind of like all those iterations of those games just because they bring something different to the table, if that makes sense, graphic wise, and just how the video game companies were able to pull off the game and the variety of systems laid out. But yeah, and again, it's back to my childhood, and I like the Sega Genesis version as well. I love it, but I'd have to say the Super Nintendo, just because of nostalgia. It was the first Mortal Kombat that I had bought for the Super Nintendo, and the first Mortal Kombat that I bought, period. And it made such an impact at the arcades. This thing was just insane to see at the arcades, and the volume was really like at a high pitch. This video game machine was cranked. Whenever they do an uppercut, you got this big bass thing going on. You really felt those hits, and it was just something very cool to see digitized characters. I think that was the first time I had seen digitized characters in a game, and it was just an amazing thing. And it was the first time where they had to do the rating system. They had an actual court case, and same with the Lethal Enforcers game about the whole, the grading system, about how they'd go about, mature ratings, the rating system, I mean, about how they'd rate these video games. And, at the time it made an impact because violence in video games. All of a sudden we had all these realistic games, and people were like, well, we can't have our children playing these. No siree. Even though they were, the main audience at the arcades. I mean, sure, you'd have the adults as well, but kids were just as interested in these things. And it just made an impact. It made the arcade impact on those two games. And I'd have to say it's a hard choice between my favorite game, because it's Mortal Kombat and Lethal Enforcers, kind of side by side, because two amazing games. I'd have to say for Lethal Enforcers, I think I like the Sega Genesis version better, even though as a kid I played the Super Nintendo, but I kind of lean towards the Sega Genesis version because it's uncensored and there's more frames of animation and things like that. But and it's interesting. Some people like Street Fighter 2 better than Mortal Kombat. I'm kind of on the opposite flip side of that. I like the Mortal Kombat probably a little bit better than Street Fighter 2. Now, trust me, I like some Street Fighter for sure, but I just, the amount of time and hours I played into that game is crazy. And it's just so memorable. Those stages, the first time witnessing the pit, people are fighting on the pit, but it's just not an ordinary level, right? At the end, when it says finish him, you uppercut the guy and he falls. He plummets to his doom in a pail of spikes. And it made such an impact. We were shocked as audiences. We were like, we couldn't believe our eyes of what we were witnessing. And the same with the blood and the fatalities. It was just something different. Um, it was just something unplanned. It's like, what's going on here? This is crazy stuff going on. And, the characters were interesting. You had ninjas, you had like a Bruce Lee character, and the Thunder God from Big Trouble in Little China, and it was really cool to see. The kung fu was very accurate because we had actors who had background in karate and all this stuff. And it's cool to see now on the internet. Now you can see the actual game footage and how they went about creating this game, and so that's cool to see. It was all filmed, frame by frame. Somebody taking pictures and lining up the actor in the certain spots. They had everything taped and everything planned, and they'd be on platforms and all sorts of crazy things. But it made a super impact to me, and again, bringing back the arcade feel. Now games were being able to, replicate the arcade feeling of being at the arcade, even though it's a home game. All of a sudden, you got these home games, like, it's bringing the arcade home, the arcade goodness home, and it did that. And even though the Super Nintendo version was censored, I think they did some pretty interesting moves, fatalities for the Super Nintendo. They kind of switched it up a bit. But I think, all the sound and everything and the frames of animation were intact from the arcade on the Super Nintendo. And, and it was a fun time. I remember playing, with my friends that game, and just, the big competitions and things like that. But it's kind of like half and half. It was kind of like the memory of seeing it at the arcade, and then the memory of owning the arcade experience home. And it was an amazing thing. That's one of my most favorite video game memories. And yeah, I was just, and again, let's talk about Lethal Enforcers again. Bring back the arcade experience. You've got a more mature rating system. And what a game, though. It's amazing. I love the levels. You got a nice variety of levels. You've got car chase levels. You've got the bank at the beginning. It had cool little cinematics, which at the time really added to it. It's short little clips, like the police with their guns, and, the robbers are like, oh, put your hands up, we're robbing the bank, and all this stuff. And so that was cool. And you have like the classic arcade Konami music on the levels, and it was just really cool. There's a level that it's at the docks, all these boats and terrorists on the boats. There's like a million terrorists on the boats. It's a big boat, but it was really cool, and all the civilians. Innocent civilians that kind of pop up, and sometimes you shoot them, which is a bad thing. It's not good. And the crazy bosses, there was one boss, he's in this truck with a big rocket launcher, and then there's one guy with all these swords, the samurai guy he's on the train, and then there's a guy on the plane, and all this stuff. It's crazy. And then you got this crazy helicopter at the end firing missiles at you, and you got your pistol. It's an amazing time. Yeah, so those are my two favorite games. And I thought I'd share with you guys. Again, tough choice, because I've got favorite games for all sorts of systems and everything, but those two, I had awesome memories. And again, with the Lethal Enforcers, it was just getting it, renting it from the store. They came in this big box with the Justifier, and it came with this blue Magnum. It was huge, actual life-size Magnum gun. And so renting it, it was like almost, I think it was bigger than the size of the box for the Super Nintendo. And it was just cool to get. You know, you got the game, you got the manual and the gun and everything. It was just, so that was cool to see, you know. And then later you got some cool gaming boxes like, what was it, RoboCop versus Terminator. You've got the plastic crazy case, yeah. And there were some other ones. I just can't think of them right at the moment. But yeah, so two of my favorite games there, Lethal Enforcers and Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat, they're still making games today, and you know, they, with each game coming out, they definitely take a realistic approach. And they're becoming more. I think the Mortal Kombat series is becoming more closer to real life actors, right? So it's before some of the characters looked weird. The technology wasn't quite up to par, but now they're so close. Very realistic characters now, and the next game will be amazing, I'm sure. But yeah, and it's always like shocking people with their fatalities every game. Do you think you've seen like the most bizarre and crazy fatality? Well, they're going to up the ante in the next upcoming game, which will be insane, I'm sure. We'll be like, oh my goodness, you know, look at these graphics, look at these fatalities, they're crazy. Anyway, guys, simple video, just thought I'd do this one, and you know, I've been wanting to do it for a while, and yeah, I'm definitely a fighting game fan, and I'd like to see more Lethal Enforcer stuff. I hope they do. Well, you know, we had House of the Dead. There's games out there. There's like remakes being made and stuff like that. But man, oh man, would I ever like another Lethal Enforcers game? You know, that'd be amazing. And they had a second one for Sega Genesis, and I've got that too. Another amazing game that happens it's a Western, so you got Western levels and cowboys, and it's again that one's amazing as well. Like crazy carriage battles and stuff like that. It's nuts. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for subscribing. All that stuff, and stay tuned for more content along the way. All right, Jason out.